You open your banking app. You see $8,347 in savings. You do the math in your head. Okay, so if I'm trying to get to $1 million, I'm like, what, less than 1% of the way there? And then the voice in your head whispers, at this rate, you'll be dead before you ever hit seven figures. What if I told you that math is a lie? What if I told you that once you hit $100,000, you're not 10% of the way to a million, you're actually 1/3 of the way there? Sounds impossible, right? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand the single most important concept that separates people who dream about wealth from people who build it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm someone who spends way too much time thinking about money, so you don't have to. And today, we're talking about something that completely changed the way I think about building wealth. We're breaking down why the first $100,000 is the hardest money you'll ever make, and why it's actually your biggest accomplishment on the road to becoming a millionaire. This isn't clickbait. This is math. Cold, brutal, beautiful math. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So if you've ever felt like wealth is impossibly far away, or if you've been grinding for a few years and your account balance still looks pathetic, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Here's the problem. Most people think wealth building is linear. You save $10,000, you're $10,000 closer. You save another $10,000, now you're $20,000 closer. Rinse and repeat until you hit $1 million, right? Wrong. That mindset is exactly why most people give up, because they look at their balance after 2 or 3 years of diligent saving and investing, and they think, I've been doing this forever and I'm still nowhere close. This is never going to work. They're expecting a straight line, but wealth doesn't work in straight lines. Wealth works in curves, exponential curves. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're pushing a massive boulder up a hill. At the beginning, it's brutal. You're sweating, your muscles are screaming, you're putting in maximum effort, and the thing is barely moving. But here's the thing. Once you get that boulder to the top of the hill and it starts rolling down the other side, suddenly you're not pushing anymore. Momentum takes over. Gravity is doing the work. You're just jogging alongside it, watching it accelerate. That's what the first $100,000 is. It's you pushing the boulder uphill. And most people quit halfway up because they can't see the top yet. They don't realize they're this close to the turning point where everything gets easier. All right, let's get into the numbers, because this is where it gets wild. Let's say you're investing $100 a week. That's about $433 a month, or roughly $5,200 a year. Not an insane amount. You're not living like a monk. You're just being slightly more intentional than the average person who's financing a $700 a month car payment to impress people they don't even like. And let's assume you're getting an 8% annual average return, which is conservative based on historical stock market performance. Here's the timeline. It takes you about 12 years to hit your first $100,000. 12 years. Now, if you're thinking linearly, you're probably doing the math and going, okay, so if it takes 12 years to get to 100K, it's going to take 120 years to hit $1 million. Great, I'll be a millionaire when I'm 150. But here's where it gets interesting. The next $100,000, going from 100K to 200K, only takes about 6 more years. Wait, what? And then from 200K to 300K, even faster, around 4.5 years. By the time you hit 36 years total, you're at $1 million. Let me say that again. It takes 12 years to get to 100K, but it only takes 36 years total to get to $1 million. 12 is 1/3 of 36. That's why $100,000 is 1/3 of the way to $1 million, not because of the dollar amount, but because of the time and effort it represents. So why is the first $100,000 so slow? Why does it feel like you're running through quicksand? Because you're doing all the heavy lifting. Of that first $100,000, roughly $62,000 comes from your own contributions. That's money you had to earn, budget for, and invest. Money that came directly out of your paycheck. Only about $38,000 comes from investment returns. You're the workhorse. Compound interest is still warming up on the bench, stretching, maybe doing a couple jumping jacks. It's not really in the game yet. But once you cross $100,000, that's when compound interest tags in.
And it doesn't get tired. It doesn't take vacations. It works 24/7, 365. By the time you hit $1 million, more than 80% of your wealth came from growth, not from your own contributions. Let that sink in. You personally contributed maybe $187,000 over 36 years, but compound interest contributed over $800,000. That is the power of exponential growth. That's the cheat code. Now, let's talk about the psychology of this, because hitting $100,000 does something to you that has nothing to do with the math. When you have $100,000 invested, you are no longer someone who hopes for the best. You are someone who has options. You have what some people call walking away money. You're not trapped. If your job becomes toxic, you've got a cushion. If an opportunity comes up, you can take a calculated risk. You've also proven something to yourself. You can delay gratification. You can survive market volatility. You can stick with a plan. Most people can't do that. They see the market drop 20% and panic sell. They see their friends buying new cars and feel FOMO. They give up after year 3 because they're not rich yet. But you made it to 100K. You crossed the psychological threshold. You turned a fantasy into a realistic possibility. And here's the kicker. Once you hit 100K, your money starts generating roughly $8,000 a year without you doing anything. By the time you hit $1 million, that number jumps to $80,000 a year. That's life-changing money. That's freedom money. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but what about inflation? What if the market crashes? What if I can't afford $100 a week? Let's address these. Inflation. Yes, inflation eats away at purchasing power, but historically, the stock market has outpaced inflation over the long term. That 8% annual return, that's including multiple recessions, crashes, and wars. Market crashes? Here's the secret. Market downturns are actually sales. When the market drops, your $100 buys more shares. You're getting stocks at a discount. That's not a problem. That's an opportunity. Can't afford $100 a week? Then start with $50 or $25. The principle is the same. The timeline just stretches a bit, but the exponential curve still kicks in. The boulder still rolls downhill. The real question is, are you willing to trade status spending today for freedom tomorrow? Because that's what this is. It's not about being a monk. It's about being slightly more conscious, skipping the $7 latte 4 times a week, keeping your car for an extra 2 years instead of upgrading every couple of years, cooking at home twice a week instead of door-dashing every meal. Small changes, massive results. So here's the bottom line. The first $100,000 is the hardest money you'll ever make, but it's also the most important. It's the foundation of the house. It's the summit of the hill. It's the moment the boulder starts rolling on its own. And once you hit it, becoming a millionaire isn't a fantasy anymore. It's a mathematical inevitability. So, if you're early in your journey and your account balance still looks small, don't give up. You're not behind. You're just in the hardest part. Keep pushing that boulder. The crest is closer than you think. And if you're already past 100K, congratulations. The hard part is over. Now you're just watching the magic happen. All right, that's it for today. If you found this helpful, smash that like button, subscribe for more nonsense money content, and drop a comment below. Where are you on your journey to 100K? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Now go build that wealth.